If you have worked with TypeScript code bases for a while, you have probably seen types and interfaces used interchangeably. And you sometimes probably realize like if it's exactly the same thing or something different. In this video, I will show you what is the difference between types and interfaces and what is my opinion on what to use and when. Let's start with a simple example. Here I have declared a type user t with ID string and name and an interface user I with ID name and name string. Both are doing exactly the same. Like these can be used interchangeably and there is no problem. So if I change user's type to user I, which is an interface, it's the same thing and both will work. But there is a slight difference. Interfaces are designed to shape objects while type are much more flexible. For example, I can change the user type to, for example, string. And if I change it to user t, it will give us an error that, okay, type ID and type ID string name is not assignable to type string. So now I can use type user t as a string. Apart from that, in types, you can also use unions. For example, I can I can do a union that, okay, user type can be a string or a number. So if I change, so user can now accept a string as well as a number. So both are acceptable. There is no error here. This is not possible with interfaces. Extending both type and interface is possible, but works slightly differently. So if you want to extend, for example, a user, I can copy this for testing purposes. Uh, if I want to extend a user t, what I can do is I can use an ampersand sign and I can now add an age, which is a number. So if I change it, ID is user to test, uh, name would be John, and age would be third, for example, 30. So this is how you can extend a type. For interfaces, you have to use extends keyword in which we can use, for example, I can create another interface which I can name user age, and here age is, I can say a number which is exactly the same here, and I can extend it by user age. And now if I change here to user interface, it works exactly the same. So the difference mainly is using ampersand sign for types and extends keyword for interfaces. Now here is the one that actually causes problem. Interfaces are open. What do I mean by interfaces are open? So for example, I can remove this extend. What I can do is now I can create another interface with the same name, user I, and I can do age number. So what TypeScript does is it merges both the interfaces and seems like it's one. But if I do the same with type user t and do age number, it gives me an error that it is a duplicate identifier. So the key idea is interfaces are open and types are closed. When to use an interface? So let's take an example where you are working with a library or a tool where you want to extend the window object and add an attribute to a window object. So if I do, for example, window dot, for example, customer data, and I add, for example, name to it, name like John, it gives me an error that property customer data does not exist on type window or n type of global this. So to make it work in TypeScript, what you can do is something like declare global, and in this you can extend the interface interface window and use customer data where you can set that name is string. So now you see that there is no error on the customer data object. In TypeScript, declare global is used when you want to add or modify something to the global scope. Basically telling TypeScript, hey, this thing exists globally, even if you don't see it defined here. So what's my opinion on what should you use and when? So in my opinion, you should use tabs by default, but in certain cases, like what I showed in an example with the window, you can extend on the interface and use interfaces. If you want more videos like this, like, subscribe, and if you want a video related to our topic, add a comment. See you in the next one.